Welcome back to my channel, guys. This is just going to be a stream of consciousness video, thinking out loud. Last night I couldn't sleep, so of course I went to YouTube and I watched this video that I'll link down below that was analyzing whether gay voice is a scientific, objective thing. Like, where does gay voice come from? By the way, the video concluded that gay men have a bigger range of pitch that they modulate depending on who they're talking to. Everybody does that, obviously. Everybody self-modulates based on if they're in a work environment versus talking to friends versus with family and so on. But the video was claiming that gay men seem to have a bigger range of pitch, and therefore there's more sort of dramatic differences in pitch and therefore gay voice. So anyway, I watched this video, I was thinking about it, and I thought of how about a month ago, I was at a house party in Miami and everybody was gay. It was like a dozen guys. And of course, in a room of a dozen gay guys, you have different backgrounds, different personalities, different levels of gay voice and all those things. And there was one guy in particular who was very extra, like very over the top. I would even say theatrical in his mannerisms and stuff like that. But definitely if we're talking about this topic of gay voice, he very much evidently had gay voice. And it's interesting because talking to him, and it wasn't just, by the way, it wasn't just pitch, it wasn't just a more effeminate personality, it was also like the accent, you know, the vocal inflections, like what a lot of people call the Valley Girl voice. He had that as well. So meeting him, I inherently felt a judgment of him. And immediately when I had that judgment, I thought, where's this judgment coming from? Is it me projecting something onto him? Is this something that's so embedded in me from society, right? From a young age to judge not just gay voice, but like the most sort of exaggerated, the most caricature version of gay voice. Like, where is this instinct to judge coming from? It got me thinking about this idea of how oftentimes within a community, there's more judgment than outside that community. The classic example, I guess, being colorism, right? Colorism among ethnic groups, that there's more harshness and judgment within the people of that same community than potentially outsiders who don't even have the same context, right? They don't have all the nuances because they're not in the community. So I was analyzing all this thinking, then why does that happen? Why is the community more judgmental? I think, of course, there's projection and all that stuff, but does it really just boil down to you feel like you're a more self-aware version than that other person? Is that what it really boils down to? And if so, does that mean that we really just judge people in our communities who we feel have less ability to code switch than us? If you're not familiar with the concept of code switching, it basically refers to this idea that you switch parts of yourself on and off depending on who you're around. So the classic example would be like a black kid who lives in a black neighborhood. He will interact differently, speak differently with his friends in the neighborhood than when he goes to school, let's say in a white neighborhood. He'll adapt based on the community he's around. I think all minority groups code switch to some extent. I think immigrants can relate to this, right? You probably behave differently at home with your parents or with people of the same background, but at school or at work, you behave differently. Again, race comes into it. I think gay people, classic example of, and the video talked about this actually, the video on gay voice talked about how gay people will likely have higher pitch when they're around friends versus peers of other groups, which I thought was fascinating. But so anyway, the idea of code switching, it made me think, do we really just intercommunity judge when we feel that somebody isn't able to self-regulate or modulate as well as in our minds we think we do? Even though, of course, sometimes it's totally inaccurate and really you're judging somebody hypocritically for the behavior that you exhibit as well. I guess I bring this up because I think it's almost too simplistic to just leave it at, oh, we project stuff onto other people. I feel like some people lack the self-awareness to recognize that they're projecting, but I think a lot of people do recognize, especially with gay men, that a judgment they'll have of another gay person is something that they relate to, right? We often dislike about other people what we actually dislike about ourselves, or what we judge ourselves about, right? And I think masculinity is always this theme that comes up with gay men that is sort of the Achilles heel for so many of us because of how we grew up in school and what we were taught. Anyway, I'm just kind of sounding off, but I'm curious what you guys think about this. And do you have these moments too where you find yourself judging within a community, within your community, and then having that moment of discomfort, realizing you're judging and thinking like, is this fair? Like, shouldn't we be the least bit of empathy or acceptance within a community? It's something that I do struggle with, because rejection, I think, is such a big part of so many gay people's lives. At the same time, I think judgment to an extent is instinctive. It's just something that you feel in the moment. It doesn't mean you have to act on it. It doesn't mean you have to be rude to the person, but it's this feeling you have of like, oh, I don't really dig this thing about this person for whatever reason. Let me know what you think in the comments. Very curious to hear your take.